Yeah, hey, thanks, Trey. Evan Kamiko alongside Peyton Hillis. Peyton, it's a big week. Battle for the Golden Boot. You've had a lot of great memories in this series. Before we break down the 2025 edition, let's go back to 2007. What a game that was. An awesome run by you. What do you remember from that game and going down to Baton Rouge and playing it in '07?
I remember we were coming off a couple, losing games, and nobody really gave us much chance that day. And I remember we were pulling up on the bus, and it was so packed, and we had the LSU fans like banging on the truck. Or not the truck, sorry, the bus. And it all felt also surreal, but then it seemed like when the first play happened, like everybody calmed down and everything just started clicking. It was just a great day.
When it feels like in any sport, right, when you get into the swing of things and you go back and you get in between the lines, everything just slows down and it's the game you know, the game you love. But let's look forward now. Let's talk about kind of this year. It's an interesting year because Arkansas, again, 2-7, haven't won since week 2. Here we are. You're trying to get a trophy game. It's a great rivalry coming up. What's the mentality of these players right now? Take us into their mindsets when, there's not a lot to play for down the road, but you're still trying to play for the guy behind us and Bobby Petrino and each other.
As far as the bowl game goes, you're right. There's not a lot to play for. But if you're talking about on an individual level for the coaches or the players, there's so much to play for. I mean, if that's you go in the NFL next year or you're trying to put good film on tape as a player or, Petrino trying to get some win on the board to hopefully get the head coaching job. So there's a lot to play for. And I just have a strange feeling, and I'm just going to throw this out there. I think Arkansas takes the victory this week. I haven't made a prediction before, but I'm making one. I think they'll take it this week.
And I think what's interesting about the prediction is because you've got a game in a weird time slot. It's an 11:45 a.m. kickoff. I was talking to Brian Holland from Go Nation a couple days ago, and he was saying lower bowl seats are $32. What does that have to do when seats are cheap? Feels like LSU fans aren't bought in. How good could that be for the Arkansas fan base and the Arkansas team itself when the opposing team isn't bought in, and it might be a little bit quieter than you're used to in Death Valley?
I think it's a perfect storm for us. Honestly, just fired a coach, came off a pretty pathetic LSU came off a pretty pathetic offensive game last week against Alabama. And honestly, it's 11:45 game. There's not going to be a lot of drunk folks around, to create noise. Honestly, it's going to be a perfect game, and I just expect really big things from our team.
I love it. I love the prediction, too. That's your first prediction here on Big Trail Nation. We're keeping a count on. Before we toss it back to Trey, last thing for you, Peyton. Again, with this game, it's so interesting, right? LSU, 2 quarterbacks, Arkansas trying to find momentum. And you've got all this talk about coaching searches coming up for you, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in the show, but what's intriguing when you compare Arkansas to LSU and the two fan bases and the two atmospheres to play in these two programs?
There's really not much difference as far as the fan bases go. I do think the outlook as far as the organization or the athletic department is different. I think they expect a winner. I think they're going to try to do all they can to put out a winner every year, and if it doesn't work, you're on the clock to where you could get fired. So, there's a lot going on there for LSU with them looking for a coach right now. But, I also think that Arkansas should try to envelop that and try to do that also because, we're an SEC team too, and we have great talent. We have great talent come through here. And it's time for a winner for us. It really is.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit coming up later in the show. But, Trey, that's going to do it for us right now. Let's toss things back to you in Baton Rouge. Thanks, Trey. Back here in Northwest Arkansas with Peyton Hillis. Peyton, let's look big picture about Arkansas moving forward. There's 3 games left in the regular season. We haven't heard a lot about commitments and recruits and guys who want to come and potentially play for the future head coach here at the University of Arkansas, whether it is Bobby Petrino or it's someone else. But let's talk about the short term. There's not been a lot of recruits, like I mentioned. What feel is that right now, right? Why do you not see a lot of players who are hesitant to come and take a visit for Arkansas? Obviously, the head coach is a big deal, but what could it potentially be elsewise?
Like LSU, as far as the game time, I think Arkansas is like that as far as being snake bit on that level as far as recruiting, getting a new coach. Everything is happening at a very weird time right now. You're looking for a head coach. Pretty soon, January comes around, the portal opens up. You're going to have to, recruit for that. Players, like you said, players don't want to come to a school where, hey, the team's not winning, and you don't even know who your head coach is, may not even know who your athletic director is, and you may not even know who your next coach will be. So it's a very slow time for us, but I'm guessing that it's going to have to pick up here really, really fast, especially in December, if we're going to meet that January 1st window as far as the portal opens up and see who we can get. Just so we can feed off that so people can see, hey, this is the new head coach. Do I want to go there? It's a big time for us right now.
It's the new era of college football. It's how everything changes. But when you look at Arkansas as itself, Is there anything you would change for the future, whether that be finances, the approach, walk-ons, offers, when it comes to building a program so you can be like some of these schools in Arizona State and Indiana who have turned their team into a winner with one hire?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head with that. It really does just take one hire. One head coach that, can fire up the fan base. I do think you need to recruit a great quarterback. I'm a firm believer in a great head coach, great head quarterback to start a winning season or start a winning program. And honestly, what we really need, the finances, I guess everybody could use that. Everybody could use more money. But, I think it really comes down to getting a great head coach, finding somebody that can fit here in Arkansas, can fit the system, and can pull out wins.
In your mind, what would that fit be?
There's a lot of fits, but also there's a lot of guys that I don't think would fit at all. I hear Franklin is probably going to Virginia Tech. Don't know if for sure yet, but I don't think he'd be a good fit here. I really don't. As far as other potential good fits could be, like I said, I'm a Gruden fan. I think Sweeney, if he leaves Clemson, hey, let's get him.
Yeah.
I'm all big into that too. So we'll see how it works out, because I know a lot of other coaches around the nation are playing for their jobs too. So when the regular season ends, there's going to be a lot of coaching jobs available and a lot of empty coaches. So we'll probably make a decision then.
What's one coaching and personality trait that you think would fit the people and best represent the people of Arkansas that this coach wants to bring in and wants to have?
If you want that, it's really simple. You get somebody that's from Arkansas that loves the Razorbacks and that would live and die and breathe to win ball games here. I'm a firm believer in that. I think that you have to care about the program and the team that you're coaching or playing for if you want to win big games. And I think there's a couple of guys there too, that especially with the athletic director job, that I think come in here and do really good things.
And athletic director is so interesting because Hunter Yurachek just announced as the new selection committee chair for the college football playoff. So it's going to be kind of fun and interesting to keep an eye on how he balances that. Yeah.
I think it's really ironic how it happened when it did. I know you still have to be, hired at a school as an athletic director, even have that job. But, I think maybe this is maybe an opportunity for him to look somewhere else. Could be that potentially right now.
Could that impact his job at Arkansas and have something to do with the coaching search? Obviously, look, college football playoff is well off the table for Arkansas, but what about priorities wouldn't line up necessarily?
Well, as far as priorities, I think there's been a lot of headaches as far as the athletic department, and the football team, the coaching staff, the players. There's been a lot of headache, and there's going to be a lot more coming in the future. I'm just saying. So nobody's job's there right now, and I think everybody feels that. So, for him, I just think that was another outlook to maybe get his name out there on a few sheets,
It could potentially be. Last question before we send things back to Baton Rouge. Looking at this series, the Battle of the Golden Boot, and these two programs, right? Brian Kelly, 34-14, won 75% of his games, but he's fired. Sam Pittman, 20 in one-score games, but he was held a longer leash. Is that a difference of the standard between the LSU program and Arkansas, and should it be that way in the future?
I think it should be a natural standard, right, for any college organization or anybody that competes to try to win. You saw with Florida. Bill, he went out there, won 2 games, beat Mississippi State. He beat Texas, and they fired him. Brian Kelly, like you said, won almost 80% of his games, but he didn't win the big games like you should at LSU, and that's why they got rid of him. But I think Arkansas needs to have that mentality going forward, because if you're not planning on winning, if you're not striving to win, you're only setting yourself up to lose. That's just how I feel.
And I think that's how every Arkansas fan feels, no matter what coach is going to get thrown around. Should be a fun time.
No doubt.
Peyton Hillis, thanks for joining us. That's going to do it for us right now here in Studio Trey. Let's send it back out to you again in Baton Rouge.